Good day to you. I wanted to talk to you for just a minute, not keep you very long. I don't say that a lot, but I don't think I'll be able to keep you long on this one. I'm just going to relate a couple of things to you. One is that I had a vision this morning where it involved a few people. And of course, when I wake up, the Lord tells me this had nothing to do with people. They were only types and shadows, and it had to do with Russia, and it had to do with the prophecy of Daniel, and it had to do with the United States. So I wanted to relate that to you. Now, as far as the Transfiguration blog site goes, where it takes a lot of time to make the sermons and to create these things, and then we turn around and try to share them on so many social media apps. But we feel like we've put enough out there that people know that we have a presence on social media, and they all know where to come to get the sermons, whether they're written sermons, digital documents, or if they're audio sermons, as well as access to anything that our ministry has available. So being that most people know that, then we're just going to start, if we have an audio sermon or a typed sermon, we're just going to put it up on the Transfiguration blog website, and whoever comes to see it will just see it, and those that don't have to. Not reaching out to the general public in that sense anymore. We've done it for years, reaching out to people and sharing with people, and now we feel like that the Lord is making some changes. And so it just keeps things simpler. If anybody is truly interested in the sermons, they can just come to the blog site. Everybody knows where it's at by now. And it was interesting when I made that decision to do that, to not really put these things out there to the people that I know personally, the people of the former ministries that I know personally, that I've been trying to share with them. And I heard the Lord tell me, He says, "Son, why they're not receiving is because the first shall be last and the last shall be first." And I said, "Well, Lord, what do you want me to do?" He says, "Don't share with them anymore. If they want it, the table is set, they can come eat it. They know where the table's at." So anyway, so it was interesting because the very day He spoke that to me and I made that decision, I checked the stats on the Transfiguration blog website, which I don't do that too often, but I do try to check it from time to time. And when I did, for the first time since I've been keeping track of the statistics of the site, which lets me know how many views from which countries and how many visitors, all these kind of things, then it was interesting because America has always been 75 to 80% of the visitors. Now, we've been getting people from around the world, but not as many as we have here in the United States. But we've got them in a number of countries. On my Facebook page, I've been posting images of the names of the countries that have been receiving the message, and this has been astounding. But anyway, the very day I decided to do this, to make that change in the audience that I'm projecting to, I went and checked the statistics, and it was amazing because all of a sudden the other countries outside the United States, from Canada to Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, Brazil, Russia even, the Netherlands, Germany, Ireland, France, Great Britain. It's just on and on. I can't even name them all. But all these countries together, they far outnumbered the post and the visitors and the reading and the viewing of the sermons than America did for the first time. They was like 3 times higher than America was, which usually America was 2 to 3 times higher than they were every day. I always had more Americans visiting than I did the foreign countries. And all of a sudden, yesterday, I checked when I made that decision, Saturday night or Saturday, whenever it was. The Lord spoke to me to do that. I checked Sunday morning, and to my utter surprise, all the other countries were 2 to 3 times much higher than the United States, which I said, Lord, that is incredible, because that's basically what you're doing. You're leaving off with the United States, and you're going out to the people just like your vision said you would. Your word said you would. You know, I didn't mean a vision, but the word of the Lord, because Jesus said in the parable that there was a wedding supper set, and he invited the people who he thought would be interested and want to come. People who might be familiar with him, family and friends, see. But none of them came. None of them had no interest. So it angered him, see. It angered the king. So what did he do? He left off with those people. Just like God did the Jews. He left off with those people. And he went to a people that were not a people. He went out, so to speak, to the highways and the hedges. Or we say he leaves America and he goes out to the people who were not so worked up or drowned in their intellectual religious mindset to think that they're haughty and don't need anything. Those that might be hungry for something. So, might be hungry for God. So anyway, we made a change, and it's been astounding. And as soon as I made that change, taking the focus off of America and the people here in that sense, and began focusing on the people outside of the United States, immediately the numbers from those countries shot super high, much higher than America for the first time. And it was also amazing that this very morning I had a vision concerning those foreign countries, concerning America and Israel, not Israel, but America and Russia. So I wanted to talk to you for just a minute about the vision I had about America and Russia. I'm not going to go into the vision as to the details, but I want to, because I don't feel like I need to, but I just want to relate to you that in the fact that George Pike, my spiritual father in the gospel, the greatest man of God I've ever known, who had the revelation of Jesus Christ, he had a great vision of the serpent and the bear. It's called the vision of the serpent and the bear. In the vision, he saw America coiled up like a serpent, and he saw the Russian bear sleeping. And for whatever reason in the vision, as to how he interpreted it, the Lord gave it to him. This serpent struck the bear, and the bear went wild and crazy, and there was like no place safe on the earth, he said. Well, see, that's like a tribulation period beginning. Now, the bear, of course, like it does with any beast, represents the body. And of course, Russia has to do with the rushing mighty wind. The serpent has to do with 2 things. One, it has to do with, you might say, Eve on the woman's side, because she took the serpent. She became the serpent to that extent, accepting the serpent's mind. But in another sense, it has to do with Calvary, because Jesus was made that serpent there on the cross of Calvary. And of course, we know America is based on Christianity. So as God had a nation in the Old Testament, which was Israel, he formed a nation for the age of the New Testament, which was America. And so America, a woman nation with a Statue of Liberty and women's rights and all these kind of things over here in America, the liberty of the flesh, you might say, which has to do with the world of grace. Grace makes allowance for the flesh. Then we see the serpent of America striking the body as to Russia and the bear. Now, you know, those who follow spiritual things, you know that there's spiritual revelation, which is the true light. And then you have types and shadows of that revelation. And then because you have types and shadows of that revelation, you also have anti-types and shadows of that revelation. So you see it like this. The serpent, in one sense, has to do with, you might say, a man with his serpent. He enters the body, which is his wife, the woman, to reproduce life. All right, that's a type, okay? But then in the antitype, you find the serpent entering Eve in the garden. See, that's an antitype. She's not receiving life, she's receiving death. So America striking Russia, which I believe Trump will do. I believe him and Vladimir Putin will come to blows. I believe the rhetoric will get out of bounds. I really believe, I'm not sure why the Lord is doing it, though there are some things I do sense and see. But the Lord told me that Trump's second presidency, that he would have a second presidency, and that America would be struck and a great devastation would come to a great city in America where a dirty nuclear device would be detonated and it would cause Trump to rise up, which that would be a good thing. But he let me know that Trump coming into office the second time has to do with the trumpet sounding to go to war. The first time it sounds is to gather the people, which was a time of peace, which was when he was number 45. But now he's number 47. And of course, 47, there's a lot I could say about that. We've mentioned some things in past sermons. But being 47, then you see he's the last Trump sounding, the seventh Trump sounding in its typical sense, the 47th. Now then, so I feel like him and Putin will come to blows. I believe their egos will get involved, and I believe the rhetoric will spread, the coals will be flamed, will be fanned and turn into flames. And it's going to have to do with Ukraine, because Ukraine has to do with a typical thing that's coming in pertaining to the Jews, showing a dispute over the body. Because their leader there, being a Jewish man, he's the leader of that country. And there's some things we could talk to you about in spiritual revelation as to why Zelensky is over there, and why he's the ruler of Ukraine, why Russia wants to annex it, and why America is going to strike at it, and why America is giving so many billions of dollars in equipment to fund that war to keep Ukraine out of the hands of Russia. But anyway, this all goes back to the spirit and the body becoming one. God spoke to us and told us this Easter of this year he was going to release the thunders as to make them public, and he has done that. They've been kept secret, we say, for many years now, and they've been growing and maturing like a tree, producing fruit, and he said that now they're ready to produce their fruit. Now they can be open to the people, which was the door opening to the tree of life. And this goes back to Jesus being a closed book at Calvary. He's that book that was sealed with 7 seals at Calvary. But when it comes to the resurrected Christ, then that means he's the unveiled. He's the unveiled Christ. See, at Calvary, he's the veiled Christ. He's a closed book sealed with 7 seals. But at the resurrection, which is the tree of life, then now he is the unveiled Christ, which means he is the open book. The seals have been loosed. The thunders must have sounded because the seals are loose and the book is open, and you find the body of the bride is changed. This all takes place here between the chapters of Revelations chapter 4 to 6. You'll find that. Now then, so having said those things, this goes back to Daniel's prophecy, as the Lord showed me in the vision this morning. And there's some things that's going to take place with Russia, and they're going to find out some things concerning the United States and some things that they're doing behind the scenes with Ukraine, hiding Ukraine, or they're hiding spies, they're hiding plans and different things by using Zelensky as a cover. See, using him as a distraction and a cover, but letting American spies come in, and even hidden military officials and people going in there to use Ukraine as a base, so to speak, behind the scenes to spy and look out concerning Russia's secrets. And they're going to find this out, and it's going to anger Vladimir Putin, it's going to anger Russia. Words are going to be crossed, and the same way Daniel spoke of Gog and Magog and these kind of things concerning his visions. All this has to do with the tribulation coming in, has to do with the thunder sounding. So we find that America, according to the vision that Brother Pike had, does strike Russia. And I don't know of any president that would have the brains or the will or the pride or the backbone that would be willing to take that chance to do that except Trump. Even going forward, if we have future presidents, I just don't see anybody, any politician or leader in America. Maybe Elon Musk might do it, I don't know. If he becomes president one day, and I do feel like he's going to run that direction, maybe he might be the one, but I don't think so. He's a smart man, and I believe he would rather deal with peace and money and finances. But Trump has, though Trump does a lot of good, but his ego is really going to be a problem for him. And if he gets insulted too much and disdained too much on the world stage by Russia, then it's going to cause him to act. It's going to make him say things that he may not fully intended to do, but once he does, then once he says it, then he'll be forced to back those words up, because now his character, his honor, his name's at stake. See, he'll say things out of pride, like, Russia, if you cross this line or do a certain thing, I'm going to do this, and think it's going to stick, and then Putin's going to take him up on it. And then he's going to be forced to back that up, which is going to cause a big dispute and a big war, which that may be the beginning of World War III, because in the vision that Brother Pike had, he said when they struck that bear went wild. And he said there was no place safe anymore on the earth, which that tells you that it must have taken in all the other countries of the world. They were forced, so to speak, to choose sides, and the great war we have sparked out of that. And no place safe would mean attacks by both countries. We say the NATO powers and the powers that are sided with Russia. They're fighting each other. They're shooting missiles now at each other. No country is safe anymore. And so that's the hour we're in. And I wrote a little bit of this, put it up on the blog as to a typed document concerning the Russian vision and what I feel about it. But I felt also to make a little small sermon on it. And there were some things taking place pertaining to that even had to do with a home I had up in Commerce, Georgia, and right at midnight, there was a pet we had that looked like a little bear, and right at midnight my son came and woke me up. I grabbed my gun, and because there was a commotion out back in the carport, and when we opened up the door, there was a serpent coiled up, ready to strike the little pet we had that looked like a bear. And there I was with the gun, me and my son, symbolic of the two witnesses that Brother Pike saw in the vision. There we were with the gun, and there was the serpent, there was the bear, and there was a great thing that was taking place, and the Lord spoke to us at that time, pertaining to a number of things. But anyway, so this all goes back and ties in with Israel, as they have already gotten to the point to where they've sacrificed one of the red heifers, and they said it was a substitute. They took one of the 5, which is very interesting because those 5 heifers have to do with the 5 beasts in the book of Revelations. Now let me explain that. I know there's only 4 beasts, but if you read it properly, when it talks about the 4 beasts, when it gets to the 4th one, the pale horse rider, who is death, then it says, and hell followed. See, as if to say hell was another horse or another rider, so to speak. And we brought that out why God suffered it to be the fourth beast, that it would be called death and one would be called hell, and how it has to do with the rending of the veil, how it has to do with the Lord and the Christ, how it has to do with the inner Christ and the outer Jesus, and why it's a rent veil, and why the fourth and fifth one there pertaining to the fourth beast, the fourth horse rider, as a rent veil there. And then you find there's also a rent veil that comes in between the sixth and the seventh trumpet. Those two are related to each other. One has to do with the rent veil of Calvary, the other has to do with the rent veil of the revelation of Jesus Christ. One has to do with being overshadowed with death, the other has to do with being overshadowed with the light and the glory of heaven, so to speak. So anyway, we brought all these things out already, and but Israel substituting, they said they substituted. If they did, they could have had the real sacrifice and said it was just a practice run so that the world would not get upset. But either way, it shows just how close things are breaking forth as to the great tribulation, the law coming back in, because once they sacrifice that literal red heifer, if they haven't done it already, then you're going to find everything in the world is going to change at that moment. And this year, we've seen so many extremities happening in the weather, massive floodings that so many of the meteorologists in those areas around the nation and around the world are having incredible floodings that is so unusual. They're calling it, this is a 1 in 1,000-year flood, but they're happening all over the world. They're not just happening in one spot here, one spot there. They're happening all over the world. There's been 13 of them just in the last couple of weeks that they said is their once in 1,000-year flood. How does 13 of them happen around the world like that? Why are we having hailstones that are as big as grapefruits out in South Dakota and parts of Texas and different places? See, the Bible says that the weather would get so wild and so crazy and so extreme that the storms would start producing hailstones that weigh 100 pounds. See, and already scientists are seeing, and weathermen are seeing how that the not just golf ball size, not just orange size, not grapefruit size even. They're saying, and they showed pictures of it, you could see it online, where people were holding up these hailstones that were the size of cantaloupes. Folks, that's huge. That is huge. It was busting out windows and putting holes in the roofs and those kind of things. See, we've never had that before, because what's taking place is, as the thunder sound, the voice of God speaking, not man speaking, but the voice of God speaking, God's voice, His faith, His authority, His power, the inspirational vibrations of His voice, as they speak through the minister, the man of God, and through the children of God, it goes into the earth, and the earth hears the voice of God, and that's the midnight cry to the earth to say it's time for your change, it's time for the millennium to come in, and the earth responds by all these things beginning to happen. Which means that the natural heavens will start going into a turmoil the same way the spiritual heavens will, because the thunders is a spiritual turmoil that takes place in the spiritual heavens. Therefore, it's got to take place in the natural heavens. And that's why the weather is now going to start, from this point forward, it's going to start getting wild and crazy like you've never dreamed before. Floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, they're all going to increase. They're all going to get worse. They're all going to astound and shock the weathermen. The weather systems ain't going to be able to predict it. The computer models ain't going to be able to predict it, because God is doing something He's never done before, and man has never seen this before. It's not going to be business as usual as it has been. So great things are happening, great things are taking place, and just keep your eye keep your eye out for things to come, because things are happening. And I told you we had the vision of a dirty nuclear bomb, it appeared like, went off in a city that seemed to be Atlanta. And when it did, it killed thousands and thousands of people, destroyed 2 or 3 miles, maybe 4 or 5 miles of the city. And it was so detrimental, it angered the people of the United States, it angered Trump. In the vision, it was Trump as president. And I saw this great military machine rise up out of the black smoke of that, and man, it was angry, and it was going to go forth, and it knew who had done it, whether it was one nation or a few nations together, and it was going to go and lay them nations to the ground. So, you know, let's just say, suppose, for instance, what if it's some kind of a Russian terrorist, you know, and they find out that Russia is been providing terrorists, or what if it's one of them religious terrorists over there from Iran, and they find out he was supported by a Russian, by Putin himself, or by the Russian government. You see what I'm saying? Somehow it's going to bring in Russia, and America's going to strike. And you know what I'm saying? There's these things that you can see between the lines, regardless of what the headlines tell you, there's things that's going to take place. And you can't believe what the news media tells you, because everybody has a motive, everybody has a narrative they want to spin to you, and the truth is hardly ever there. Very little of the truth, if any at all, is ever there. But if you know God and you have good common sense and you have the spirit of revelation, God can show you these things and you'll be able to see clearly what's taking place. So I didn't want to keep you long. I just wanted to share a few things and just let you know that the greatness of the hour that is at hand. Like I said, the thunders have already begun sounding. God has released them now to the public. They've gone out, so to speak, into the wind. And everything changes now. Everything began changing. And that's why immediately after Easter Sunday, when God released the thunders, immediately you notice the end of grace started increasing, because wrath started showing up all around the world. You find that Pope Francis went out as to death. See, in the Catholic world, he was the head of that, so he went out in death. Then you find out Jimmy Swaggart now died and has died to death because he had to do with the Pentecostal church ages. He was the head of the Assemblies of God and Pentecostal age, showing that in a type. He denoted, in a typical sense, the last of these great men like William Branham, A.A. Allen, Oral Roberts, Billy Graham. Jimmy Swaggart was kind of in that vicinity, and he went out showing also the closing of those ages. He was a little bit behind them, but he was a carryover pertaining to them, and now he's gone. And now, of course, the man of God out in California, in Sun Valley, I think they call it, which has to do with the sun turning black as sackcloth of hair. His ministry, as to him, John MacArthur has gone out, which has to do with the finishing, and him being a non-denominational preacher. He really taught a lot of Baptist doctrine. And so all this shows that his ministry, John MacArthur's, was named Grace to You. So it showed the end of grace to you. And all these lights going out like that, because God's bringing in a new thing. He wants all the great somebodies to be put out of the way, to be silenced, because when he speaks, he wants the audience to be quiet, because he's taking the public stage and he's shutting down all these other voices. And he's going to raise up his own voice. That's what he's going to do. And he's going to witness to the world, to those that are left behind, and to those that can make the change. And it's going to be a great time of dividing, which means a great thing is taking place. That's through the Spirit of God is entering the elect's body, entering our outer man, bringing us to the change of the body. But it also means the blood's coming off the mercy seat, which means Satan is being cast out of heaven, and he's entering the body of the people of the world. And you're going to find the world get more dark, even though they're already greatly dark. You're going to find more anger and rage. People are going to rebel against their governments, against their homes, against their families, against systems, against their jobs. You're going to find an outbreak, because when Satan is down here in the earth, the Bible says, woe unto those that are left behind, that Satan is among you, and he goes about like a roaring lion. And what does the lion do? It's like he's been starving to death, so to speak. Now he's been cast out of heaven, and this lion lands on the earth, so to speak, and he sees nothing but a world full of gazelles, you might say, and he's going to go crazy and start devouring flesh, see. And it's going to be wrath, it's going to be disease, it's going to be destruction, it's going to be on and on and on. Fear like you've never dreamed is going to take a hold of the earth as death comes. And the Jordan, which is death, overflows its banks at the harvest time, which is the change of the body. So listen to these words, go back, replay these things over again and again if you can, and listen to them, because the vision showed this morning that this thing with Russia is close at hand, and it's going to make many changes. So we love you, we appreciate you, God bless you. Listen to these sermons, subscribe to our blog site, and share these wherever you feel you can. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, we love you, we pray for you, and God bless.